Hello everyone. In this tutorial, I am going to show you how to respawn the player after it hits the enemy and few more things. Firstly, I would like to click on player and in the tag section, I am going to choose player because we will be using this tag to respawn the player after it hits the enemy. After we do that, we will go to the player script. And in the previous video, I talked about the on collision enter function as well. So in that function, I will write if other.transform.tag is equal to enemy. That means that if the tag of the enemy is enemy, then transform dot position is equal to orig pos. So it will be equal to the original position of the player. So let's just save it and I'll play the game. So I'm moving forward. I think I hit the player. Yeah. But still, I don't think it's respawning. Let me see. No. So what just happened? Well, there were a few things which we have missed. First is the orig pause of the player. So if I click on player, it's at 0, 1.42 and 0. So what will happen is when the player hits the enemy, it will be going to this position and not to this. This is the start position and it is different to the orig pause. Now for every level we might have different starting positions. So to fix that, what we need to do is in the start function we need to write orig pause is equal to transform dot position. So what this will do is it will store this position of the player which is in the beginning, this 0.628 and minus 2.20.7, it will be stored over here, and whenever the game starts it will be stored here and the player will start the game. So if I click on play and I will try to hit the enemy, yeah, so it went to the beginning. So it's working quite well, but there could be a time where you're just standing in between the enemy and the player. I mean in the enemy's path, like if the player is standing right over here and the enemy hits the player, then there could be a few problems. It's a very rare case scenario that you slow down before, because how the on collision enter works is that if this player collider hits the enemy, then only this function would be called. But if it is the reverse case, then it would be different. Then it will not be called. So that is why, if at all it happens, so we'll be on the safer side, I will copy this on collision enter whole function and I'll paste it in the enemy script. Now it's giving me a red colored text which tells me that this variable is not there in the script. It's not there in the script. So what we need to do is, now I talked about the public functions, yeah, in the previous tutorials I talked about the public and the private functions. Now because orig pos is a public variable, I'm sorry, it's variable, then we can use it in the enemy script as well. because public variables and functions can be used throughout the all of the classes or all of the scripts. So what we do is, firstly we need to change this to player, because it's enemy hitting the player, and it should not be transform.position, because then it would be enemies transform.position. We need to write it as other.transform.position, because the other is the player. Player's transforms position would be orig pos. Now to access orig pos, we need to write other, that is player. Now let me click on player. Now the orig pos variable is over here. Now we need to access this. To access that, firstly from the player we need to access this component, which is the player script. So to do that, you click on you write other dot get component. Oh yeah, I need to first write game object, because in the game object you will have components. So it's other dot game object dot get component, and in the angular brackets I will write player. Let me put parentheses and then putting a full stop, and I'll write orig pos. So what this line means, other, which is the player, yeah, it's saving, yeah, so the transformed position would be equal to the value of the orig pos. So it is other, which is the player as a whole, dot game object, which is the game object of the player, get component player is this script orig pos. So this variable I will get access to, and when I play the game, you can see the values have already changed. They are equal to these values. So if I go ahead, so again it's going back to start position, but we have one problem. The problem is we can't see the player right in the beginning where it is, because the camera, and I will also talk just tell you about this, how this camera views it, how much it will view. Now it depends on this rectangle. You can see the white rectangle, that is the boundary, or it tells how much the camera can see. So if we just alter it, so I'll just click on camera W and I'll move it, then you can see the player. So if I click on play, now I can see my player and I can go to the end. But still I don't like this view. Now you might if you're like doing an FPS shooter game, you might want to do, keep the camera with the player. So for that we'll click on player, I'll click on main camera and I'll drag this onto the player. Now I had talked about the child and parent game object in previous tutorials. So the main camera is now the child of the player, and the child will just follow the player wherever it goes, and it will not be independent of its own position until we do something with it. Just to show you how it works, I'll just position it near the player so I can just check it in my camera preview how it is looking. I'll go near the camera. Okay, so this looks fine. So if I click on play, what will happen is the camera will now move with the player, and this is correct actually. It, because if you have a huge area, like if I put the ground at like 100 and even this is 100, then this is huge. You can't just see from here where the player will move. And it will look good if you just keep the camera with the player. Now it depends on your game. But in this case, I would keep the camera with the player. So the camera will now move with the player because it's the child of the player game object. Now there's one more thing which is happening over here. It is when I hit the enemy, it is rotating slightly. So see, so it is not looking nice actually. It should be just in the same rotation which we have, and you can see over here it's 40 point. If I click on player, the rotation is different, and we need to keep it as 0 every single time, because then the player will have a bit of problem playing this game. So to fix that, I will go to script and I'll go to the player script and I will create a private variable of quaternion rot. Rot means rotation. Now we had used vector 3 for positions. We use quaternions for, we had used vector 3 for positions and we use quaternion for rotations. So in the update function, I would write transform dot rotation is equal to rot. Okay, so what I've done right now is, let me zoom in. I'm just forgetting to zoom. Yeah. So I'll just show you the on collision intro if you have missed it. So this is the on collision. You may pause the video if you want to see this and this one. Till now I've done this much. So I'll go back to quaternion. So private means that this variable can only be used in this script only. Quaternion is for rotations. So we want to fix this rotation to be at 0, 0 and 0. And because it's a private variable, we should assign it as new quaternion. Okay, I'll just keep it as open bracket. Okay, so private quaternion rot is called new quaternion. Now I want it to be at 0, 0, 0, 0, 4 0 values, because it is asking for either an empty, it should be empty, like it should either be like this, or because you can see over here it's telling 1 of 2. So there are two ways of assigning a quaternion variable, or you either give 4 float values or 4 decimal pointed values. So I would give 0, 0, 0. 0.0 is 0, so that's why I've given 0. Now in the update function, what I'll do is transform.rotation is called rot. Now we had this transform component of the player. Its rotation should be only 0 throughout the game, and that's it. So if you play the game, you will notice that will remain at 0 at all times. Now I hit the enemy, but it's still at 0. Yeah, so it's not changed, and that's what we want. So there is no change which is being made, and that's good. Now if you want to create more enemies, now it would be a little inconvenient if you just duplicate this way. Click on this enemy, the start position and the end position. What we'll do is we will create, I will create an empty game object, and I will call it enemy 1 because it's the first enemy, and I will put this, the enemy, its start position and the end position onto this. So if you just look, so if you duplicate this, you will create another enemy, and also it will move in the same way as it was. So if I click on play, you can see now you didn't have to do anything, you just had to duplicate it, and it will automatically take the values, because this enemy will take this this start enemy pause and this end enemy pause. And even if you want to make sure that is correct or not, you click on this and it will tell that it has been the start enemy pause which is being used over here. Same goes for end enemy pause. I'll just rename it as 2, and you can position it wherever you want. So I will position it over here. So I will just save scenes and save project, and if I play the game now, it is a little difficult to play the game now. So I will just collect all the coins. Uh, oh, yes. So the last one, and this is the goal. So I can enter the goal, and it will say you win. Yes, we'll put up the next level as well in future videos, but this is what we'll be doing for this video. And just for last tip, if you are not liking this layout, you can go to this layout. I hadn't talked about this layout tab in my first 2 videos where I have been talking about the interface. So if you click on this layout tab and if you click on 2x3, you will get the scene view and the game view simultaneously. And normally how I use it, I drag this project tab, so you can drag it and reposition it over here, and then I just keep a huge view for scene as well as game, so it would be easy for me how it looks for the game, and I need not look at the camera preview every time. So if you like this one, or you may use the 4 split, so you have 4 windows, so you can just adjust it. It will give you at various views the 4 views, Y, X and Z. So these are different views you can use, and they are the normal default. This is the default one, but I prefer to use 2x3 and just dragging this project and just resizing the windows, but it's up to you. And if you want to play the game in maximize mode, click on this maximize on play in the game tab. So in the default it would be like, go to the game tab, click on maximize on play, and if you click on play, you can now play the game on a big screen or a bigger view. So that's it for this video. So please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Until then, bye.